Soccer Aristocrats podcast, the elite podcast in all of soccer podcasting. I'm David Harris.
And this is Jake Keegan. What's up? What's up?
How you doing, Jake?
Doing great this week, Dave. We had a nice week last week with the ZB brothers, and it was great catching up with them. They had a lot of cool stories and insight for us.
Yeah, it must have been a lot of fun for you having played with them for a couple years and getting to know them pretty well.
Yeah, it was great getting to know them. The Edmonton experience as a whole wasn't always so great, but the people in Edmonton were unbelievable, and I enjoyed that experience. And reconnecting is always great, kind of going over some of the things that happened, remembering the good times, the bad times, and I think both of them had some good insight for younger players and what to do, what not to do, especially with like if you're going through trials, if you get turned down by certain coaches and dealing with that kind of adversity.
I think it's one of the fun things about doing the show too is like, you know, I got a much greater appreciation for the Canadian Premier League, you know, like their seasons with Edmonton and Cavalry, and you know, just it's something I've saw, you know, as we discussed, I got to see a bit of it, you know, on beIN Sports, and got to watch some of the games, Fox Sports, and it's definitely, you know, something I'm looking forward to watching a bit more of, following more, seeing how both of them do in this off season, where they end up, and then looking forward to next season, following more of the league and getting to know it a bit better, much better appreciation for Canadian soccer, and you know, looking forward to having more players from the Canadian Premier League on.
Yeah, definitely. Are you trying to move me to the Canadian Premier League next?
I think so. I think we need to get you up there to Canada and see if you can bang in some goals, and maybe you can even become a Canadian citizen, play for the national team.
That's a long way off. Unless my 2 years there count already. We'll have to look into that one.
Perhaps. You never know.
Yeah, I know a couple of my teammates got permanent residency. I don't know if that's the same as citizenship. Daryl Fordyce and Albert Watson, they're permanent residents, and their kids are Canadian. So I mean, they're from Northern Ireland, so they're fully on it. I don't think they could play for the national team though. So we might have to look into this.
You never know. Maybe all three of you can.
As my official advocate, I'm putting you in charge. I'm not going to do any of this work. So.
I will do some investigative work with the Canadian the citizenship. I don't know, whatever.
With the Prime Minister.
So this week we got a really, really great guest. Something really, really exciting to look forward to.
Yeah, we actually have two guests this week. We'll save the second one for a little bit later, but the first one is our first women's player, which is really exciting. We've wanted to for a while get into the women's game, and this is the first player that's agreed to interview with us. So that's really exciting, huh?
Yeah, Sofia Huerta from OL Reign of the National Women's Soccer League, NWSL, national team player for the U.S. as well as Mexico. Quite a bit of experience, still very young, and very well-known, well-accomplished player. Very excited to have her on. Really looking forward to talking to her, finding out about her experiences, her background, and getting some insight from her on the women's game. Like, you know, like you mentioned, we've been wanting to have someone, you know, on from women's soccer, could talk about the women's soccer here in the U.S. and internationally. And it's great to get a guest, and hopefully we'll get more as we go further along with the podcast.
Yeah, I think one thing that's crazy about her is the fact that what you just mentioned about switching from Mexico to the U.S. internationally. Like on the men's side, that would be equivalent to treason almost. So I'm very curious to see kind of her thoughts on that. What led to that decision? I'm very interested to get talking to her. Do you have anything else to say before we move on to the episode?
What's that?
Oh, I said, do you have anything else to say before we move on to that episode?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, connection just froze up there. We are using Zoom much like everybody else, and once in a while we get a little caught up. Nah, just, you know, again, very, very excited about this opportunity, and the diversity of the types of guests we're getting. And that's what we're going to try to bring to everybody each week as we go further along, hitting out all different areas of the game, different eras, different experiences. And also, thank you to all of our listeners for that tune into the Elite Soccer Podcast in all of soccer podcasting, the Soccer Aristocrats. Apparently, we're getting a bit of a following in both Canada and Ireland, Jake. So, what are your thoughts about that?
I guess that is two of the places that I played. I guess it would make sense. I'm a little disappointed in the U.S. though. I think we need a few more listeners south of the border here. But yeah, it's great that we're anybody that will listen to it. I'm happy because I think there's a lot of great stories in there, and it doesn't really matter where you're from. I think I saw there's some listeners from Finland. What are the other countries that were on that list? Definitely Ireland, Northern Ireland, and the UK, and then there's a few countries on there. There's a few listeners from Singapore as well, according to our Anchor distribution thing. So, welcome to all of our listeners from Singapore.
Singapore, that's a major market that we've been trying to, hit on. And, but we both discussed how, we're disappointed with our performance in Luxembourg, and we are going to have to work on that and try to build our following there and, become a major podcast in soccer podcasting in Luxembourg. But thank you to everybody who is listening in the elite countries of Ireland and Canada, because we are on the charts for soccer podcasts in Apple Podcasts, which probably sounds a lot more impressive than it really is, or maybe not. I don't know. I couldn't really figure out exactly what it means, but I was just excited to see us that we're out there and the people are listening and hopefully enjoying what we do, and getting ready now for our next episode with our next guest, with Sofia Huerta.
All right, shall we?
Onward.
Welcome, everyone, to another episode of the Aristocrats Soccer Podcast. Your host, Jake Keegan, here with Dave Harris. And today we have an extra special guest because our first women's soccer player, we've been trying for a while to get one, a while being a few weeks, but we've been for a while to get one. But today we have Sofia Huerta here with us today. Welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So,
yeah,
Sofia,
welcome, Sofia. Really, really excited to have you on, and like Jake mentioned, very excited to talk a little bit about the women's game.
Yes, me too.
So Sofia spent this past season with the OL Reign, which is I guess a club affiliated with the French club, correct?
Mm-hmm.
So talk us a little bit about this current season. I know it's been a crazy season for everyone with the pandemic and everything being shortened, but I know you guys had a little bit of a bubble in Salt Lake City, yes?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so I just a little background about me. Born and raised in Boise, Idaho. Played club soccer from a pretty young age, like third grade, I'm pretty sure. And then I went to Santa Clara, got drafted in 2015 to the Chicago Red Stars, was traded from Chicago to Houston in 2017. And then now I currently play for the OL Reign, and because I got traded in this last offseason. I definitely expected a little bit of a different 2020 season with my new team, but obviously everyone kind of had to adjust to this crazy coronavirus and obviously Black Lives Matter movement and everything. There's been a lot going on. So we specifically though, from state to state, it was different. So a lot of markets, so like let's say a Portland or Orlando, they had not as strict restrictions at first, so they were able to do their preseason in their market. But Washington was a pretty heavily infested corona state, so we actually went to Montana before we went to the bubble for a month, spent time there. Thank you to the University of Montana. They let us use all their facilities. And then we went to the bubble in Utah. So us, the OL Reign specifically, were actually in a hotel for 2 months straight, whereas other teams were in their market, in their homes. Then they flew to Utah, whereas we were in hotel for a month, and then we went to Utah for a month. So yeah, and then we finished that. We made it to the quarterfinals. Everyone kind of made it to the quarterfinals, and we lost to Chicago, my old team, in penalty kicks. And then that Challenge Cup ended, and we had a month off, and then we just started to do the fall series, and we have our last game this weekend.
Awesome. How's that fall series going for you? Is it the same? Is it kind of a quarterfinal? Is there a playoff, or how does it work exactly?
No, we just did, the way the NWSL did it was kind of regional. So we have 9 teams. So there were 3 groups of 3 teams, and everyone would just play each other twice. And so we were with Utah and Portland. We tied our first game with Utah, lost both games to Portland. Unfortunately, in our last game, it was a pretty close game, and we gave them 2 penalty kicks that may not have been penalty kicks. There's kind of a funny photo that's circulating on the internet right now that I'm in it, and it's so funny because all of me and all my teammates are like, what is happening? How can you call this PK? And then we play Utah this weekend, and then we're done until next year.
Bad refereeing decisions? I don't think that happens anywhere. I've never heard of that.
Yeah, no, definitely no bad refereeing. But hey, I feel like being a ref would be very hard. I'm not like taking any credit away from how difficult that job is, but PKs were very, I'm not sure if they were PKs.
Well, we don't want to get into any trouble, Sophia. We'll just assume, it was the VAR might have helped a little bit or something. I don't know.
Right.
So how has the different setting for yourself that you mentioned, being in the hotels, not being at home, do you think that had any kind of impact on your season?
Yeah, I mean, I think that everyone had a different situation. Each team did, but it was such a weird year. I mean, I was coming onto this team as a new member, and so that was obviously really nerve-wracking for me because I was meeting this team in Montana for the first time. And we also, had a lot of new additions to the team, not just on the players' end, but we also got a new coach too. So there was a lot this season, a lot of factors that could have played into some of the results that we had. But, I think that as much as you want to focus on the present, I also think that it's important to realize like where this club is going to go. And we've made some really important changes. And, a bunch of our players are actually playing abroad right now. Some of our like really key typical starting players are not here, at least 5 of them. So, I think this season was important. I'm not saying it was a wash, but I think we're really excited for next year and, just what OL Reign can do, especially with the new ownership. So for people who don't know, we are formerly known as the Seattle Reign. And recently in the off season, Lyon, which is a French team, obviously they bought us out. And so now that's why our name is called OL Reign. And so they're our owners now, which is awesome. So I'm actually going to play in Europe after the fall season. I'm going to Lyon just to train with the team since we do have that connection.
That was actually going to be my next question with so many of the players, as you mentioned, going over there. So that's great. You're going to be going to Lyon to train and play with them. What are you looking forward to from that experience?
Well, I think, the last time I was in a really, every NWSL team is competitive. So, I don't want that to be misunderstood, but I haven't been in a really, really competitive environment since the national team. That's an unmatched environment. It doesn't matter what NWSL team you're on. Being on the national team is something that you can't really emulate. So I haven't played in that situation or been in that situation for 2 years now. So Lyon is probably the only other training environment that is similar to a U.S. soccer training environment. So I'm excited to go there again, be uncomfortable, or like be in an environment like that again, be uncomfortable and be really, really challenged, which I'm challenged here with OL Reign, but this will be just a completely different level. And I think that there will also be the aspect of it that, I'm not getting a contract. That's not possible. I'm just going to train with the team. So there's not a lot of pressure there and really just soaking in, playing with some of the best players in the world.
Could there be a short-term loan situation? I know like on the men's side with Red Bull, they have like Salzburg, New York Red Bull, and all these different teams. Is that a possibility with you, or is it strictly training, no chance of any games?
No, there's no chance of any games because they already have their internationals and I don't have a European passport. So it's strictly just I'm going to train there for a couple months.
Gotcha. Well, you get to live in France, get away from the US for a while. Yeah,
Exactly. Yeah, no complaints over here.
Would playing abroad again, having already played in Australia a couple times yourself, would playing abroad again be something maybe down the road you'd be interested in doing, or are you focused on just NWSL going forward and seeing where that path takes you?
I would love to play abroad, but it's not easy if you're not a national team player to go to a team that's really worth going to. Again, like you said, I have played abroad, and in my opinion, I've done that a few times now. And unless I'm going to go to a top team that I'm really going to benefit from going there, I'm not going to go. So that's kind of hard to do if you're not a national team player. A lot of the rules, a lot of really big and good teams aren't going to take you if you're not a national team player. That's why you see, Sam Ewis going, Kristen Press, Tobin Heath. Those are the people who are getting the opportunities. Australians, Rachel Daly, who's from England, people who are on national teams kind of have more of an opportunity there, which is great. Obviously they're good players. But for someone like me who hasn't been on the national team for 2 years, it probably is more beneficial for me to stay at the club here and play and learn from Fareed, our current coach, than to go play abroad on a team that, will get smashed 6-0 by one of the top teams. It's different, right. And it's a little different in some other leagues.
Right.
Yeah. Still, like, I think that it's just so great that you got that experience to play over in Australia. Just being abroad, putting yourself in uncomfortable situations, like you said. How would you compare that level in Australia to what it is in the NWSL?
It's not the same. It's definitely an easier league, and it's just different, right? So in the NWSL, the more common approach is you go to your club soccer, you go to college 4 years, and then you get drafted, and then it takes a little bit, and then you're with it's the age group of 22 to however old, so it's an older age group and a little bit of a different development program. Whereas like in Australia, they there were like 16-year-olds on my team, and it's not common for them. College is not as big there, so it's kind of like you get noticed, you either play with the Matildas, the youth Matildas, or you're playing club, and then you play in the W League there. And so it's just a different level, but it's always great to go there. I mean, I think always getting games, for me especially, just because, I'm from Idaho, and I played a lot of sports growing up, so I never spent just the whole year focusing on soccer. So really the first time in my whole life where I just played soccer all year round was when I first went to Australia. So NWSL Australia, 1 month break, NWSL Australia, 1 month break, and I did that again, and that was really helpful for me because I got those hours that I needed to get into, getting more technical and just being put in situations. So it really benefited me. But now that I'm 27, turning 28 soon, I've been there, done that, and just want to focus on getting noticed here again. And then if the opportunity comes where I can go to a bigger club, then I would obviously want to do that.
Yeah. One of your experiences, I believe in Australia, was you won the championship in 2019. Were you there for that? And can you tell us a little bit about that experience?
Yeah, so that was an interesting year. I had gone to Australia in 2016 for a club called Adelaide, and we were not very good, but I hadn't really made a name for myself in the W League, so that was really one of my only options. And so I went to Adelaide, and then I had a good year in 2016, 2017, scored a few goals, had a few assists, and so then I was able to have more leverage going into my next W League season. And so I went to Sydney, who's a more notable team, has won more championships, and is usually a team that goes to playoffs. So that was the year where I was playing with the national team, and I was being converted into an outside back. But, it was an interesting situation because I was at Chicago at the time playing the number 10, attacking midfield, and then would go play with the national team, and I'd be an outside back. And so I just wasn't really getting the opportunity to progress or get better, grow in that outside back position other than the 10 days I was at a national team camp or, a week of that month or whatever. So I got traded to Houston because I wanted to play outside back. That didn't work out. And so then the W League was approaching and I thought, wow, well, I really have to go this year because I need to go play for a team and play outside back. So contacted Sydney. They wanted me as a forward. I said, I'm not coming unless I'm playing outside back. And they were like, well, what the hell? Like we don't want you as an outside back. You came to the W League and you scored goals. So that's not happening. And then I said, well, then I'm not coming. They said, okay, we'll play you at an outside back. So to be, to play on that team, to play out of position, and to make it to the grand final and play an outside back and score. I scored in that final in the first 5 minutes as an outside back was a pretty cool moment for me because, at a time where a lot of people really didn't believe in me, in that position, I just took it upon myself and, forced the coach to play me there. Granted, it didn't end up working out. I came back to the NWSL and no one played me at outside back and I haven't played outside back since, but, we won the championship and now I have a trophy under my belt. And so that's obviously always a good thing.
Yeah.
I read also online that when you were traded to Houston, you were traded with an outside back.
Oh yeah, it was horrible. I mean, there's a I can look back at it and laugh now because, that was 3 years ago and I'm obviously not going to dwell for 3 years, but yeah, it was pretty horrible. Like I was really under the impression and trusted a lot of people who were working with me at the time that I was going to be traded to Houston solely to play outside back. I had a really good setup in Chicago. I had a really nice apartment there. I loved the team. It was where I got drafted. For me, Chicago really became home for me. And I had a really good work-life balance there. And so making that sacrifice to move to Houston it was a big time decision for me. And I just thought, wow, well, we're a year out of the World Cup. Outside backs are getting injured. Jill's still not playing me there. Okay, I need to go get games there. And, Chicago really wasn't going to do that, which I get. It's not Chicago's job to do what's best for me. It's to do what's best for Chicago. And at the time I was one of the top scorers. So would it make sense to play me there? But yeah, I got traded. I thought I was the only one involved in the trade. And then, next day comes about, the trade gets, released and our starting outside back is coming with me. And I'm just like, wow, that would have been really nice to know, but, it's okay.
The agent,
it's okay.
Are you kidding me?
I know. No, yeah. You never know. There's a lot of things I could say about it, but, I'm happy to be with the Reign. And if I wouldn't have been traded in that moment, I would have probably never left Chicago. So it's a good thing that I am here, in this time and, made other connections and have, proven myself in 2 other NWSL clubs. That's like the coolest thing about it. Not that you asked, but I'm going to go on about it. Getting traded can be difficult because, you have to move your life and it's never easy. You get it really adjusted and you meet a lot of people and you get comfortable. And so Chicago was like home for me. And then going to Houston was really hard, but it was another opportunity for me to prove to a lot of people that I was good enough. And it wasn't just, you have a lot of people who say like, oh, she's not good enough, this and this, and that. And it's like, no, I know I'm good enough. So I went to Houston, proved myself and, had a whole team and coaching staff that I got to prove myself to. And then coming to the Reign, it was the same thing. And so that's kind of like what's cool about all getting traded so much is that I've just had to prove to, not just the team that I was traded to, but to a lot of teams that, hey, I can be impactful and I'm a good player and a good person to have on the team.
I'm not trying to like name names or anything like that. We don't have to go there, but I was just curious, like when you say people saying that you're not good enough, just to me, looking at your background, to me, you seem like an exceptional player. So just give us some general insight into like people who are saying you're not good enough, because to me, it seems like you're a very, very high level player,
Yeah, thank you. No, yeah, I think the biggest thing was that that people didn't think I was good enough to be converted into an outside back, that I was kind of a goal scorer. And then, why would anyone move me back there? And, I'd play there a couple of times and maybe didn't show exactly what I was able to do, but there were a lot of factors that I think played into that. And people will say like, oh, she should never been on the national team. I don't know why Jill gave her a chance, blah, blah, blah. And, it's just kind of like, I don't really care that much what people say, but it's just nice to be like, oh, okay, well, yeah. You don't think I'm good enough? Well, okay, I think I am.
Yeah.
I love seeing the athlete side of it. Like, you can see the fire in your eye when you say, like, someone didn't say you're good enough, and you're just like,
I'm like, okay. You don't know how hard it is, but okay.
Exactly. Can you just touch a little bit on the wealth of kind of quality in the U.S. women's pool? I guess on the men's side, we look at it and we're like, we're decent, but the equivalent on the women's side is like we're Brazil on the men's side, and there's just so much. The talent pool is absurd. Like, just being honest, I mean, especially compared to the rest of the world, and the huge competition that there is with the U.S. women's national team. And I mean, that's why you guys win World Cups, and we don't, and on the men's side. But can you just go into a little bit about that kind of competition for places and how it's improved you as a player, maybe brought out the best of you on the club level, different things that you've learned from maybe some of the other top players that you've played alongside, the Carly Lloyds, whoever else, or Pina Morgans of the world that you really respected?
Yeah, I mean, it's really competitive. You always hear that you could have another 23 from the NWSL, and they'd probably make it to the semifinals or the final in World Cups, because it is so competitive, and there are really so many people to choose from. And then on top of that, people have really long careers. So you see the Carly Lloyds, Megan Rapinoe, Kristen Press, Tobin Heath. I mean, those people have been involved in the national team for 10 years, over 10 years. And so that makes it even harder. Like, not only is it really competitive because everywhere you look, there's always someone who's just as good or maybe better, but then you have people who just keep getting better because they're always with the national team. And every year they get that training, and, they get more confident, they get more comfortable. And so you see like those people have a lot of success. And so yeah, it's a really competitive pool, but there's always room to have that, in my opinion, to get that opportunity. If you're really someone who is good enough to be on the national team, you will get that opportunity, and you have to seize it. And I think that's the most difficult part. I mean, I think it's different for everyone, but I've had my opportunities to seize and to get on that team. And, maybe it's been a little bit of a bumpy road because I've had to change positions and stuff, but I mean, they've happened. So I do think that the Federation does a good job of looking at NWSL players and really investing in certain players that they think can change the program and can be a good face. Obviously they 10 years ago chose Alex Morgan to be the face of U.S. soccer, and she seized that opportunity completely. I mean, she really did perform in many moments, many big time moments. And, it's obviously it's worked out for both parties, for Alex and the U.S. national team. But, I've been really fortunate to train with them, and there are a lot of players on that team that really are just such extremists. I mean, every time I went to camp, everyone was just expected to be on their best behavior, like not just players, but staff, videographers, assistant coaches, equipment managers, everyone just needs to be their best. And that's why the U.S. is the best. The women's team is the best.
Is that also, I'm guessing the answer is probably yes, just from everything you've said. But, your decision to switch from Mexico to the U.S., did this competitive drive that you have to be the best, to play with the best, to, show everyone how good you are, did that play a factor into that decision as well, or was it just purely other reasons?
Well, I think that for me, it was like really individually driven, because I obviously had the opportunity to play for Mexico, and I took that and I played for them. But it always been a dream of mine to play on the U.S. And so it was funny because I knew all along that I wanted to play for the U.S. always. I mean, that was just my dream. And I knew at one point I was going to be given that opportunity, but I had people who were like, what are you doing? Like, just play for Mexico. You can go to World Cup. You can go to Olympics. Like, really, where do you see yourself fitting in? Like, and I was kind of like, oh, what? Like so you don't even, I mean, I didn't care, but people would say that. And I was like, all right, well, I've already done that. Like I played for Mexico and I do know I could go to a World Cup for them. And if they qualified, I could go to Olympics, but it was more so just like, I know what I want to try and accomplish, and that's to make the U.S. team. So even if I never go to a World Cup and Olympics, I still had that stint where I was on the national team. And of course, that dream for me is never like going to go away. I mean, as long as I'm playing soccer, I'm always going to hope that I will get that opportunity again. But it wasn't a question for me to make that switch. You know, I made the decision when I was really young. I mean, I played for Mexico basically for just 1 year. I went to the U20 World Cup in 2012 and then played in 3 caps with the full team in 2012. And then for 5 years denied them until I got my opportunity with the US.
Right.
Was there reasoning behind you denying them? Was there a certain number of caps or competitive appearances where you couldn't switch after that point? Or did you just not want to go to Mexico because you didn't think that was what you wanted long term?
Yeah, I just knew at that point that I wasn't wanting to be with them long term. So I was like, well, what's the point then, you know? And so I just always said no. But I, never got a call from the US ever. And I was like, wow, maybe I'm actually cap tied. Maybe I can't play for the US. And then obviously I got that opportunity in 2017 and realized, all right, I'm not cap tied. And so I made the one-time switch.
That's awesome. Did you receive any sort, I mean, I don't think you would, just because you were in college when you were playing for Mexico and you were younger and it was a long kind of time difference. Did you receive any sort of backlash? Because I don't think it's as much of a rivalry on the women's side, but on the men's side, US and Mexico is like bitter rivalry. Was there any kind of backlash media-wise or with any kind of rival players or anything like that? Or was it just, oh, whatever, I move on to the US, that's fine?
No, there was definitely a backlash, like when I made the switch on social media, but it didn't matter. But yeah, there was.
Is that a major? I mean, you have a pretty large following. At least I don't know. I thought you did on social media. And do you get a lot of that, interaction? And like how do you sort of just ignore it or try not to pay too much attention to it?
Oh, I mean, I just don't even know those people, so it's kind of like, I really don't even look for it. But if I see it, I'm like, oh, that's interesting. And then, it's like, I try really hard not to care what other people think of me. And I definitely don't care what people think of me that I don't know. Cause I'm like, you don't even know me. So your opinion of me is just ridiculous.
Yeah.
And also I feel like I did a pretty good job of explaining why I wanted to play on the US team. I mean, I'm from Idaho. Yes, my dad's born and raised in Mexico, and I grew up in a bilingual household. But I mean, I grew up in Idaho. My dream was to always play on the U.S. women's national team. I mean, playing for Mexico was never even in my radar until I was 20, and they called me, and I was like, oh sure, why not seize that opportunity? But I always knew I wanted to play for the U.S. So there were some people saying I was a traitor, but I'm like, well, I actually am like, yes, I'm half, but I identify with being American more than I do Mexican.
Right.
Was there a kind of moment when you were growing up? I think I'm 2 years older than you or 3 years older than you, but I remember when I was 9 years old watching the '99 World Cup. And was there a moment, maybe it was 2003 for you, where you kind of identified with the women's team and you were like, one day I'm going to play for them?
Yeah, definitely the '99 World Cup. I knew that I wanted to play on the national team and even wrote it down on a piece of paper that I still have the project from, and it's really cool to look back and see that. And even when I got my first cap with the national team, I had friends from elementary school who messaged me, and they were just like, we knew this was always your dream. I haven't seen them since elementary school. They moved away, and it was cute. They messaged me and said that. So yeah, it's always been a dream of mine. And definitely '99 World Cup was when I was like, definitely want to play for the US team.
What was it like growing up in Idaho as far as the soccer culture, or there probably, I'm guessing, wasn't a huge one at the time, and then what led you from that to Santa Clara? Could maybe just take us along that path a little bit, youth soccer, college soccer?
Yeah, so back when I was playing club soccer, that's all we had. And then the Olympic Development Program, ODP, we didn't have ECNL or DA or anything like that. So I just played club soccer. And then being from Idaho, there was actually a couple years when I played ODP where there wasn't enough girls to go with the state of Idaho. So I had to go by myself with the United team is what they would call it, which was usually a team filled with extra SoCal players who didn't make the top 18, or people from Idaho or New Mexico where there wasn't enough players. So that was really interesting. But yeah, I got noticed mainly because I would do ODP and get held over and then be on the regional team and then go to youth national team camps, which the US national team camp only happened once in my youth career. So that didn't happen often, but the ODP regional team happened every year. And then, just was scouted and in tournaments mainly with the regional team, or if I went to a showcase with my club team. And I just really wanted to stay on the West Coast. I wanted to be in California. That was always my dream. So even when East Coast schools would contact me, I just said no because I wanted to be in California. And it basically came down to Santa Clara and Stanford. And that was a really hard decision, but I went with Santa Clara and, was there for 4 years, really enjoyed my time there. Jerry Smith really invested in me and felt like, that, he wanted to put in as much work as I wanted to. And that was a really mutually beneficial relationship. And, he's still someone that I really appreciate their relation, like his friendship, his relationship, and his like the coach player relationship that we had. So, and then I was drafted to Chicago. So it was, I was the first professional soccer player out of Idaho on the women's side. And then I was the first player from Idaho to be on the U.S. national team and the Mexican national team. And I was first player to play for and against the U.S. So it's been cool to kind of be the first one to lead the way in Idaho. But, when I go back, I always hear about girls in Idaho from my like former club team who are getting called to youth teams. And that's really cool to see.
That's great.
What was that draft day experience like for you? Did you go to the draft? Where was it held? When you're drafted by Chicago out of Santa Clara?
I didn't go to the draft because I just wasn't quite sure when I would be drafted, and I just wanted to be with my friends and like my family at the time. So I was in Santa Clara at my apartment with a few of my closest friends and was just listening to it on I think not the radio, but I think there was like, it was on Twitter and you could listen to it online or something. And I actually got a call from Rory, the coach for Chicago before was it before? No. I think it was on like the radio and or whatever it was on, and it was like number 11, Sofia Huerta, Chicago, and I was like, holy shit. And then I got a call from Rory like 2 minutes later, and he's like, do you want to come to Chicago? And of course, and I said out loud, yes, thank you so much. But in my head, I was like, I don't think I have a choice, right? Like, yeah, you drafted me. Like, from what I understand, don't have to go to Chicago. So that was a really cool moment.
Can I stay in California? Is that an option?
Yeah.
Can you talk a little bit about, actually, if you don't mind, I thought it'd be interesting to touch a little bit on the different positions, the forward, winger, attacking mid, the outside back, and then I was reading where Jerry Smith, since we discussed him, he talked about your world-class ability to cross the ball, which would indicate winger, outside back, but then you've also played forward, attacking mid. So maybe just where do you think is your best position, and give us a little bit of insight into that.
Yeah, Jerry always said my cross was world class, and it's so funny. It just proves that when someone really believes in you, it really can flourish into something amazing, because like I really do think I have a really good cross. I think it's because like Jerry told me that when I was younger, and then I just like kept practicing, and now I just think I do like appreciate him saying that, and I do think I have a really good cross. So I typically think a lot of coaches tend to put me on the outside because of my cross. But I grew up as a center back and got, was recruited as a center back, played my freshman year at Santa Clara as a center back. And then at the end of my freshman year, Jerry was like, hey, we're going to try you up top. I scored a hat trick. So then he was like, okay, we're going to keep you up top. And I was like, okay. But I kind of, look back and think, wow, what would my life be like if I would have stayed at center back? Just because I do think that's a position that is less competitive on the national team as compared to like a forward or midfielder. But, but then I was a 9 my whole college career basically. And got really comfortable having my back to the goal. And then my senior year, I played the 9 my sophomore and junior year, and then the 9 I played outside forward. Or my senior year, then I played outside forward. So then I went to the professional level and was mainly a 9, switched to outside forward every once in a while. And then year 3 comes along, our number 10 gets hurt, Rory puts me at the number 10, got like player of the month, made a second team, got my call in to the national team camp. And then they made me an outside back, and then I got traded to Houston and I played the 10. So yeah, I really have played everywhere. And so I'm not quite sure where my favorite position is, because I do like being out wide to whip a ball in, but then I like being the 10 because I feel like I can dribble and take shots from out wide and switch the ball, or outside the box and switch the ball. But then I like being a forward because I'm closer to the goal. I don't know.
We just need to get
I wish I knew. Honestly, I really, really wish that I had one position that I could keep perfecting. But I do think that having me closer to the goal is probably a better thing.
Okay. Well, with any constellation, that's usually the sign of a top player, is that they excel in any position you put them in.
Oh, well, thank you.
Dave, I thought you were going to say it's a sign of a top player is being a striker, but
well, that too.
Would you say it was in high school where you ran a lot of track and field, broke some records?
Mm-hmm.
Would you say pace and your speed is one of your strengths?
No. No, I mean, it was growing up, but, I ran hurdles because I needed because I wasn't going to just win in the 100 or the 200. I needed to jump over some things to actually compete. So no, it's not one of my strengths. I would say that I'm definitely powerful. My first few steps are powerful, and I'm explosive, but there are some really, really fast people in the league. I think I'm fast, but I'm not one of the fastest.
Maybe, we talked a little bit about Jerry Smith. If there are any of the other coaches that you've had, you played with some really accomplished coaches, whether it's, with the national team, club teams you play with here in America, Australia. Maybe just talk about any of the other coaches besides Jerry that have had a big impact on you and your career.
I mean, every coach I've had has definitely had an impact on my career one way or another. Anytime you really spend a lot of time with someone and they, believe in you or they don't, they're still going to have an impact on your career. I would definitely say Fareed, my current coach with OL Reign, has been someone that's really had me change certain habits that I've needed to change over the last few years that I haven't necessarily. And so he's not afraid to tell me what I need to do differently. And I just really appreciate his approach on and off the field and how he connects with his players and just the soccer IQ he brings. He's coming from being the head coach at Lyon and PSG, and he's just a very high class coach, and he actually used to be a really good player as well. So he's really challenged me in a lot of ways. And I feel like I've learned from him.
That's great.
Do you think there's any difference? I've never been coached by a woman. I've always had male coaches, and you've had all male coaches besides Jill Ellis, right? Is that correct? More or less.
I had a high school coach that was a woman, and my track coach was a woman. But yeah, in my college professional career, I've just had head coaches that are males, but I've had assistant coaches that are females.
Do you think there's any difference, male to female, in terms of running the locker room, or do you think that it's really case by case? Because it seems that on the men's side, it's mostly male coaches, and then on the women's side, it's also mostly male coaches. So do you think that having a woman's kind of point of view, especially in a women's dress locker room, would that be more beneficial? And would you like to see more women kind of coaching on the women's side, or does it not matter to you?
Well, I mean, I would obviously love to see more women coaching in general, women and men's side, because I do think that, you know, obviously women are really powerful and very intelligent. But at the end of the day, like, whoever's the best, doesn't matter if they're male or female, it's whoever is the best, who has the best trainings. You know, in terms of the locker room, that's not really up to the head coach, right? I mean, of course, it does start from the top and they need to have good attitudes and whatnot, but the players, I think, are the ones who dictate the locker room and how that works. But yeah, I want a coach who's going to push me on and off the fields. And I've had women who have done that. And I've had men who have done that.
Can you talk a little bit maybe about your approach to the game off the field? I was just reading where you know, leading a healthy lifestyle. I also read in one of the interviews that you've done that you're vegan as well, and I'm not sure if you still are or not, but just how those play a part in your preparation and how it impacts your game.
Yeah, well, I think when you get older, you realize that, like, what you put into your body, the amount of sleep, how much water you drink is, like, really, really important. In college, that's obviously not something people really focus on, and maybe the young people who do, like, probably perform better because in college I was not doing that. But obviously once you get to the professional level, you have people who are helping you with that. And so, you know, food's always been an interesting thing for me because I enjoy junk food and I like things that aren't good for me, but I realize that it doesn't serve me or my career very well. So I try hard to put healthy foods into my body and to really put foods in my body that are going to fuel me for my practices and my game. So I was vegan for 3 years. I eat fish now, so I guess I'm pescatarian. But yeah, I stay away from chicken and red meat and, you know, animal products, not necessarily because I feel like it's the healthiest for me, but because morally that's just what I have chose to do. So, but yeah, I do it because I obviously want to perform at my highest level. And so being vegan for a long time and now, you know, incorporating fish into my diet, I definitely have to be more aware of how much protein I'm getting and how often I do have like smoothies with protein powder in it and stuff. That's definitely difficult sometimes, but I do feel better being primarily plant-based.
Do you remember what that vegan documentary, was it on Netflix? What was it called?
Game Changers.
Game Changers. You watched that?
Mm-hmm.
I thought that was really interesting, especially when they had the blood of, like, one was a vegan, ate vegan the night before, one was ate, I think, chicken, and the third one was ate red meat, and the blood of the red meat just looked like gooey and disgusting. And I thought that was, I mean, as an athlete, you don't want your blood to look like that. That can't be peak performance.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely was a really biased documentary towards veganism because, you know, I listen to a lot of podcasts and some people who I think are really intelligent who talk about why red meat is good for you and blah, 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 blah. So Game Changers was definitely leaning on the vegan is the best and only way, which I don't necessarily agree with. But I just, you know, everyone in my family doesn't eat meat. So it just was easy to kind of adapt that lifestyle. So, but yeah.
What would be some maybe like interesting stories or experiences that you'd be interested in sharing? Something that maybe you haven't discussed in another interview or podcast, or something that, you know, you think listeners might enjoy with all these really, you know, amazing experiences playing professional soccer, playing for the national team, playing in Australia. Just something, you know, unusual or different that you got to experience because of that.
No, I don't really have anything. I'm trying to think. I mean, of course, like playing soccer can be like super stressful at times, but it really is like the ideal job for me. I mean, I always try to express how grateful I am that I'm a professional soccer player because, you know, every day I get to continue getting better at something that I want to get better at. And then also on top of that, you know, I get to work out for my job. And I think it is hard. It is hard, especially in a year with a year like this, to stay motivated and to stay active and to stay healthy. And my job just requires that, like, that's just what it is. So I'm super grateful for that. And yeah, I'm trying to think.
Any funny moments from your career, or?
I mean, other than getting traded to play outside back with our starting outside back, really, I'm trying to think if there's any funny moments from my career.
I don't know if that was funny, haha.
Yeah, pretty much. No, I mean, I don't have anything. I'm just like, yeah, I'm super grateful to be in the position that I'm in. But no, I can't, nothing on the top of my head to think of.
That's okay. No problem.
Can you touch a little bit on, yeah, I got one. Can you touch a little bit on, a lot of people don't realize the sacrifice that comes in with playing. I mean, I get it. It's a great, like you're talking about, you're living the dream in a sense, but you're also sacrificing a lot. You're moving state to state. You do have a built-in kind of friend group when you move to a new team, which is nice. But can you talk about kind of the sacrifice between family and friends that you kind of miss out on living in different places, away from people that you know? Maybe you're missing weddings, you're missing family events. Can you touch on that a little bit, and the sacrifices that are necessary to play at the level that you're at?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think a big thing that you said, of course, like I've only been to 2 weddings. I've been invited to way more, but I've only been to 2. And, you know, especially going to play abroad, I've missed the last 4 Christmases at home, and Thanksgivings and New Year's. And, you know, there's a lot of reunions with my college teammates when they go on a weekend getaway. I mean, obviously not now with Corona, but before that I just couldn't go to. And, you know, it's stuff like that is hard. And there's definitely times where it sucks. But I would say the biggest thing is just the highs and the lows. You know, I think in general, the human race definitely experiences that all the time. But I think sometimes in athletics, yes, it does seem like we're just living the dream. But it's definitely really takes a toll on your body and your mind, you know, emotionally, physically, and every aspect. It's really hard to stay focused and in the zone. And then how do you deal with failure? How do you deal with success? Like, there are so many aspects to it and layers to being an athlete, and you kind of always have to be sacrificing. I mean, and if you're not prepared and you're not ready, like an opportunity can really be missed. And that goes for everything. But you know, your life and your lifespan of your athletic career is much shorter than, you know, maybe your typical, like, you know, finance job or something. So like the opportunities that come, they don't come often, and it's in a short amount of time. And so it really does take a toll on you. And so you really, it's emotional. I mean, it really can be ups and downs, but it depends on how you manage those moments. And, you know, for me personally, I have, you know, mentor in my life who I talk to often about, you know, dealing with those moments and the highs and the lows, and how to be okay with missing out on some of the things that my friends do on the weekends or for weddings. And, you know, really it's just to keep my mind focused on the fact that I want to be on an Olympic roster and a World Cup roster, and nothing will ever compare to that if I accomplish that. So yeah, it's definitely difficult to be a professional athlete.
I'll agree with you there. Do you have anything that you do aside from talking to your mentor? Is that your college coach, Jerry Smith, that you talk to after games? No, someone else. Okay. Do you have anything else that you do? Say you have a bad performance. I know me personally. If I have a bad game, I can't fall asleep till like 4:00 in the morning. I don't know the best way to handle things, but do you have something that you do to kind of decompress, try to take your mind off things?
Definitely something that I'm still working on. You know, it's gotten definitely better. But I think that, you know, as athletes, you really have to have a short memory. And if you have a bad game, that feeling will go away. So I always try my hardest to like feel those emotions, whether it's the night of or the next day. I feel them, and then you just have to move on. You know, it's like, in the grand scheme of things, it's just soccer, and there's so many other things that you can put into perspective and realize that because you had one bad game, it's not going to be the end of the world. But it's really hard to work on something every day, and then it not pay off in the games. But you just have to realize that, you know, with time it will get better, and you'll always have another game to redeem yourself. So, you know, there's not anything super specific, but you know, I talk to my mentor, I go on long walks, you know, I spend time with people that I love, and, you know, at the end of the day, it's not that big of a deal. But yeah, I definitely can't sleep after games if it's a bad one. Definitely not.
To the end and just talk, you know, maybe just give us some insight into what you're looking to do for the next steps of the rest of your career, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, for me, my journey has been interesting, and, you know, everyone's journey is really different for sure. But mine has been, has been eventful to say the least. But, you know, I am getting up there. I'm 27, almost 28. And so, you know, I really do have to start thinking about, how much more time do I really have to be on this national team? Because the reality of it is that, you know, age does matter a little bit when it comes to sports. And so for me, the next, like, I'm 27, I feel like the next 6 years, that's how long I mean, I'm not sure how long I'm going to play soccer, but I really just want to focus on making that national team and whatever I have to do to do that. So the short months, you know, obviously I'm going to Europe. I'm going to keep training. And then next season we have hopefully a full season. Hopefully by then, you know, Corona has really settled down. We have a vaccine, and we can actually have your regular 24 game season. And that to me is a really big opportunity to show that I should be in the next cycle. So, you know, that's really it for me. I'm super happy to be on the Reign. I think it's a really good place for me. And obviously I'm getting an opportunity to go train with Leon, and that's an opportunity that I may never have in my life. So to get that just because I play on the Reign is something I'm really grateful for. So, you know, I really am just going to keep trying until it's really not an option for me anymore. And I hope that day never comes, but it will, and I'll be ready for it. But until then, I'm going to do everything I can to make that team.
Great. Well, thank you so much for giving us your time, and wish you the best of luck and continued success, and you know, good health, and be safe, you know, with yourself going over to France, and hope everything goes well for you, you know, and hope you get to realize your dream.
Yeah, no, thank you so much. I actually feel bad for being like, oh, I have to go, but I actually have dinner plans at 7.
No,
so
that's
already
no,
running
you were
late.
very, very generous with your time. We really appreciate it. It was great having you on. Jake, anything you'd like to say?
No, just thank you so much. It was awesome. Great to connect with you.
Yeah, no, of course. And if you guys ever need anything, you know, don't be afraid to reach out. I'm always willing to talk about women's soccer and, you know, whatever you guys need. So
Well, definitely, you know, maybe down the road, hopefully in a little calmer world without a pandemic. So follow Sofia.
That and hopefully if I'm on the national team, and
Yes.
then you'll be interviewing me then.
Absolutely. Looking forward to it. So follow Sofia on Twitter and Instagram if you're not already. Anything you'd like to plug, or are we good?
Anything me?
Yeah, anything you want to plug? Follow Sofia, you know, on Twitter, Instagram.
Well, my Instagram is Sofia Huerta, SOFIA HUERTA, and my Twitter, which I don't use, but is just SCHUERTA. But yeah, I mean, follow me, I guess.
We'll get to see how
if you want to.
Enjoy dinner.
Okay, thank you guys so much.
Thanks.
Right,
Take
bye.
care. Have a good night.
Bye.
Bye. That was a really great interview. I want to thank Sofia so much for taking the time to be on the show, and you know, very exciting first women's soccer guest to come on. First woman to come on the show, talk about women's soccer, and you know, give us a lot of insight. And for me, you know, my comfort zone is definitely the men's side of the game. So I got to learn a lot and gain a lot of appreciation and respect for continue to grow with the women's game, and she's just really interesting person. What were your thoughts, Jake?
I mean, my first reaction is it's crazy. I mean, we know the U.S. Women's National Team, how good they are, but the competition for places, especially from the perspective of someone like Sofia, who is kind of on the fringe of, is she in the squad? Is she not in the squad? And that pressure that comes along with it. And like, she's a great attacking player in NWSL, great attacking player in that league. And then she goes to the national team and they're like, sorry, we got Carly Lloyd, we got Alex Morgan, we got Rapinoe, we got Kristen Press, we got Mallory Pugh. We have all these names. And it's like, all right, so you can try maybe to make the squad as a right back. And from my perspective, being an attacking player, if you said, all right, you're an attacking player with Greenville Triumph, now go to the national team and go play left or right back, I'd be like a fish out of water. So I have a lot of respect for what she's doing and what she's trying to do. And she has made some caps with the national team, but she's very determined in her pursuit to make an Olympic squad or make a World Cup squad. And I mean, it's awesome. It's inspirational for the young girls and young guys at home that want to accomplish something, because you can see the fire in her eye when she's talking about the people that say that she wasn't good enough, or that say she shouldn't have ever switched from Mexico to the US because the competition was too great. And as an athlete, you love seeing that competitiveness. Whether or not you always succeed, I mean, there's a lot of factors that go into that. But I think the most important thing as an athlete is to have that competitive drive, belief in yourself, to pursue a challenge. And the challenge is not, I mean, you don't always win, you don't always succeed, but there's a quote, what is it, like, was it Vince Lombardi or Jordan or somebody? He's like, winning isn't the most important thing, but wanting to win is. And that's how I would kind of describe.
I was thinking of winning's the only thing, or
not that one. Winning is not the most important thing, but wanting to win it, and the pursuit of winning, because I think athletic competition teaches so many good life lessons, and I really respect what Sofia is doing.
Yeah, that young woman is, and for me as a 46-year-old, she's a young woman. She's intense and she's driven, and that is inspirational for anybody. Her dedication and her passion is really something to be admired. And if you take that, and whether it's soccer or anything else, anybody, whatever you do, it's very impressive. She and to also learn more about it, she wants to play for the women's national team. That is everything, and for her is to play for the national team. So she's going to France to stay, during a pandemic. She's traveling, to another country and living there and training in a different city, different language, and training to make sure she stays fit to come back and play for the NWSL with the OL Reign, in 2021, and trying to get back onto the national team, getting traded from Chicago to Houston to play the position, and then going to Australia and only being willing to go if she's able to play the outside back position just so she can play in the national team. Like, everything kind of stems from the national team. And for me, that's a very interesting perspective. And, I'm trying to think off the top of my head. I can't recall anything like that with the men's side. And not to put anybody down, that level of intensity, I'd have to think a bit more. And if anybody out there is listening, wants to tweet us or post on Instagram, not just trying to get a cheap plug in there, but if everybody can think of something comparable to that level just for a national team spot, it definitely plays off what you're saying. And, interesting. Interesting that she's also back on the fish too. It's interesting, back with away from the veganism, back to the incorporating the fish. What did you think about that?
Got to get those fish oils, your omega-3s. They're very important.
That is true. But yeah, anything else you picked up that you didn't already know about the women's game? That insight you got?
Trying to think. I do know a lot about the women's game already in terms of a lot of the times I'm going from the NWSL to the W League in Australia because of their season being 6 months and like they kind of need somewhere else to go. I'm pretty familiar with the women's game. I thought it was really interesting though. You see documentaries all the time on the 99ers and how they inspired a generation. The Women's World Cup in 1999 with Mia Hamm, Brandi Chastain, all those girls. I thought it was interesting to see that was her moment as well. So that she was like, I want to play for the national team. I want to follow in their footsteps. So yeah, I thought that was really interesting. I didn't think it was very surprising because that at that point, and with her, I think she was 7 at that time. It would make sense. She watched it on TV. I'm sure she started playing soccer shortly thereafter, and it inspired her for a lifetime. Even though she's from Idaho, which there's probably not much going on there. I mean, especially maybe 20 years ago. I can't imagine.
You have to be pretty driven to. I mean, absolutely nothing against Idaho. It just, it's. I mean, growing up as a youngster in New York, it was like soccer was a niche sport here. Seeking it out and finding it was next to, it was difficult. And so growing up there, for her to, I mean, obviously she's into athletics, in general, which you mentioned that. So yeah, that's really impressive for her to be, and then to be going to the, the regionals and playing, with players from other states, from California or whatever that maybe, weren't on the first team or on the second team or whatever, another team down, and then standing out from their national team at youth level, and then going to Santa Clara, which is a, big college soccer team as we know, and being able to go from there. And the one question I was just going to try to get in, but, Sofia had to run, which was fine, but just to get her thoughts on the continued growth of the game in recent years, here in the U.S. and internationally. I think she kind of touched on it anyway in the beginning, especially when she talked about the amount of players going to play abroad from the U.S. women's national team, the top players, and then the number of spots on the top club teams, the different levels or different levels within the club teams in Europe, all things that I'm really learning, about the women's side of the game more and more, and gaining a much greater appreciation for it. And thanks so much to Sofia for her time and sharing her knowledge, and hopefully everybody out there listening will enjoy that interview and enjoy what she had to share.
Yeah, the one question that I was kind of interested, maybe we can ask Sofia back again for a follow up. The one question I was curious, Idaho being, I don't think a kind of soccer hotbed. I wonder how much having kind of a Mexican American, or having a Mexican father and having a Mexican American background played into her kind of pursuit of soccer. I'd be curious, because I'm sure
it's been covered in other interviews. Her dad wasn't. I don't think he was a soccer player in particular. Not that she's mentioned. I think it's just within the family that they're all pretty athletic. I think her siblings play college sports. I think one of them might play soccer at another college, and one of them played another sport. So it just seems like it's something within the family in general, but not soccer per se, where like her father, although I think her grandfather did play in Mexico. So, it's definitely in the blood. Mm-hmm. And maybe one day we'll have to keep, if we have her back on, we'll have to keep working on how to pronounce Huerta like she does.
Yeah, I don't know if I'm ever going to get there, but I tried.
we'll work on it. We'll speak Spanish. Speak Spanish to some of your teammates. I'll go to some of the Spanish leagues here in New York, and we'll see if we can come up with.
You won't even be going out of the way for that one. You do that anyway.
True.
Oh, the game? Let me be there. I'll be right there. I'll be there.
Well, if we weren't in a pandemic, yes. In a pandemic, I've been home a bit more. It'd be more time to do a podcast with you.
Yeah, everybody's doing different things this year. I never thought I'd be doing a podcast with you, but here we are. So
you've been talking to me way more than you ever intend to.
I've been talking to myself in my apartment for too long. in this pandemic year. So I've decided I'll talk to someone virtually. So Dave, thank you for being my pandemic vice. As
I'm going to be lining up some more guests for you, Jake, and we'll have more, and we'll feed this pandemic vice and continue on our show, our quest to bring soccer podcasting to everyone out there, to be the elite soccer podcast, the Aristocrats, sophisticated elite soccer discussion with top people in soccer. And we are the Aristocrats. We are the elite soccer podcast and all of soccer podcasting, or podcasting in general.
Until next time, though, I'm the athlete.
I'm the advocate.
And we are the Aristocrats.